Resident Evil 5.
Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Resident Evil 5 professional difficulty video walkthrough. This is chapter 1-2, it is called Public Assembly. And I find that really confusing because I think the mercenary level for this encounter area here is called Public Assembly, so I thought the last fight was called that, and apparently it's not, so that's confusing, but anyhow. You'll notice Chris is wearing this majestically ridiculous outfit. It is one of the finest aspects of this new remaster. It came with a costume I've never seen before, which is this one I'm wearing. It's very Mad Max, Fist of the North Star inspired, and then Sheva is wearing a Little Red Riding Hood outfit, which is called Fairy Tale, and it's a touch slutty with the garter belt and everything, and the suspenders, but I really like these costumes, and it might sound really silly to you, but the costumes themselves were motivations for me to enjoy this game more, because I'm shallow like that. If you can make me wear something cool, I will play your game more than perhaps should, or even deserve to. A great example of this is Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. I bought that game on the preset that I could wear that shirtless outfit that Ryu has, and apparently that's only for people in America, because fuck you, every other country. And I can't use that outfit, so I got really bored of that game super fast and never played it. And it's all because of that outfit. If that outfit was on my version and I could get it, which I can't because I looked for DLC for ages for it, I would have played way more of that game than I should. Because that's just the way I am, guys. I'm very superficial sometimes. So I like this outfit. It's ridiculous. I don't think it's modelled too well with the shoulder pads. I don't think they fit as well as they could. I love the boots. They just look ridiculous. And this is a longer video, so we can talk about a few things when it comes to Resident Evil 5. So I will not be using unlimited ammunition. I will not be using the defensive vests. I will not be inheriting anything. I'll just be doing my own thing and going through the game. The cool thing about Resident Evil 5 is once you've beat the game once, which is the prerequisite to unlocking Professional, you're able to do things you couldn't do on your first run. And that is how this walkthrough is going to be focused. Watch this, by the way. She's going to cockblock me every time. This is hilarious. Additionally here, guys, if you give Sheva a pistol, she will use it, and she will use it a lot. And if you want that, that's perfectly fine. Give her a pistol. You'll come across so many bullets for the pistol, it's fucking stupid, which I'm going to go into later on. But I don't really want her to do this, and later on in the game I'm going to take the pistol off her. And the reason is simple. My playstyle in this game is very Resident Evil 4 inspired. I am going to shoot zombies in the face or in the knee, and then I'm going to go in for the melee finishers, because the melee finishers do a lot of damage. The standard melee finishers generally do anywhere between 400 damage or 350 for Sheva, all the way up to 1200 as Wesker. So these things do massive damage, and if you go on the wikis you can find the variables for them. I'm going to probably get up a screen later on in the game and talk about them, but I think Chris's average about 500 to 600 damage, and when you consider that this gun I'm using right now does 50 damage a bullet, and when you use the knife you do 50 damage every slash, 600 damage can be a lot. The neckbreaker, of course, when you shoot them and go behind them, is instant damage. It's instant kill. So if you want to be super optimized here, shoot everybody in the knee and then go for the neckbreaker. But I'm not the biggest fan of doing the neckbreaker in this game because I think the sound effect is horrendous. I'm not going to go into it. People already know that I hate the sound effects of the neckbreaker in this game, and I think they should replace it for what Hunk had in Resident Evil 4. But once again, that's treading on the territory of me talking about the issues of this game and why RE4 is godlike. But these first few enemies is a good opportunity to understand how to play the game. Get a couple of knee shots, see how you can make the enemies flinch, shoot them in the face to do the chest attacks. Just understanding mechanics and how things work, which is useful. My upgrade path on this game is going to follow the precedent of what I mentioned earlier. When you've beaten the game once, you have access to both the Hydra shotgun and the infinite ammo bow. So what I'm going to be doing, guys, is I'm going to be upgrading with the resources that we pick up, the Dragunov when we get it for Sheva, and the first shotgun that we find in this level. Those are the two weapons I'm going to be focusing all my upgrades on. In this game, I do not need a plethora of weapons to be functional and to succeed. Any weapon in this game will get you through the game. That's one of the greatest qualities of it, I think. It's really, really good in that respect. I'm going to use the Scorpion, which is what I'm going to call it. I'm not too sure what it's actually called on this game. I might call it the Club every so often, and if you've played GoldenEye, you'll understand that reference. But basically, I will use this weapon to do melee attacks. It has nothing to do with damage. I'm using it because I can get really high capacity and I don't have to worry about ammunition. This will be my main weapon of dealing with the Manginis, even though they're called Maginis. I like to call them Manginis because I think it sounds dumber and it entertains me because I'm very silly. That's what I'll be doing with this weapon. I'll be using the shotgun for crowd control up until I get the Hydra, and then I'll be using it for damage. And then I will be using the bolt-action rifle that you get in, I think it's 1.3. I'll be using that for stuns and for any kind of distance combat. Those will be the 3 weapons that Chris will use in this entire campaign, and they will be the only weapons I really use. The only other times I'll deviate is if I need to use the Magnum for extra damage. I'll use the one we're given in the Marshland level, and I'll use the rocket launcher on certain bosses that I can make way quicker than burning all my ammunition on them, because you can get a free rocket launcher by replaying the Marshland level, and you can use it to take down any situation that's a little bit too annoying or not very fun. And personally, I think the bosses in Resident Evil 5 are completely miserable. Aside from the Wesker ones, which are just ridiculous and over the top silly, every other boss is way too long and not very entertaining, and without a human to do it with you, it just becomes a bit of a nightmare. So I'm just going to shoot them with a rocket launcher, and I'm going to get rid of the entire process. As I get kind of fucked then with the stuns, and this is leading to Sheva interrupting what I'm trying to do. If you give Sheva the pistol, she's going to shoot people when they are in melee prompt territory, and it's going to make them flinch out of the melee prompt, and it's going to fuck you because you're going to go in to try and do a punch, they're going to recover, and you can get grabbed like what happened to me then. So you need to be aware of how the systems work in this game, and I'm going to go over them in detail in future videos, but once again, this is kind of just an introduction. So Sheva, what am I going to do with Sheva? Sheva's going to use the pistol a little bit, but for the most I'm going to take weapons off her, because she's annoying. Then when we upgrade the Dragonov, I'm going to give her the bow. The bow is the best weapon to give Sheva because she has perfect aim when she needs it. Oh, by the way, guys, if you use the neckbreaker on this lady, she will not go into the La Plaga, Uraburo state, whatever you want to call it, wanker head crab thing. And it's just the best way of dealing with her. And then there's going to be a bunch of dudes that are going to come for us, so you want to use a combination of strategies to get rid of them. The best strategy that I found here personally, outside of using things like neckbreakers and melee attacks, was to bait them over onto this rooftop over here. On the roof, you have an advantage. Whenever somebody jumps up, if you hit them with the knife or with the shot, you will knock them off the roof and they will incur fall damage. It's also a great way of controlling crowds, because they can only get up from certain parts of this roof, and if you knock them down, you can keep them off the roof. It's not the smoothest of things to do, because the FOV in RE5 is tricky. They've made some amendments to it in this game to make it a bit more manageable, but it's still tricky to see. Chris dominates so much of the screen. There are moments when you'll get blindsided just because of the way the game's designed, and every so often Sheva will help you out here, which can be really nice, but every so often she won't. And strange moments of detection can also fuck you here. When you try and shoot somebody to knock them off, and for whatever reason they don't flinch, they go into some kind of armoured state and they still manage to grab you or swing, it can be very frustrating. Oh, and you get snuck up on as well. Did I mention that these zombies make absolutely no noise when they're sneaking up on you? Why is that, Capcom? Why have we gone from sound design of every footstep and every groan of every movement to completely silent wanker stealth zombies? I will never understand. It's as logical as a random Saddam Hussein in Africa and then that, token generic Chinese tourist in between all the hordes and the one scruffy-faced white person, which is Capcom's, response to the racism allegations of killing black people in Africa, which never batted a fucking eyelid when we were killing white zombies, but as soon as they become black, it becomes a problem. And it's not a problem to any black people. There's no fucking black gamers playing this game thinking, wow, this is really racist. It's just these entitled white people who don't play games who watch the trailer and think, oh my god, that's really stereotypical and bad. You should not be shooting those monsters that just happen to have tanned skin. I sped this next section up because I forgot how to get the key to get the shotgun. You'll have to bear with me, guys. My co-op partner does a lot of the things in these levels. I'm just the guy there killing zombies, so I forget how a lot of this works. And instead of just trimming it out, I wanted to leave it in, so I sped it up instead. I'm not the biggest fan of speeding up. You might have noticed. I think it looks kind of tacky, but this might help somebody who doesn't know how to get the key. All you need to realise is go back to the area where the movement goes back to normal, and this is how you get it. Throw Shever up there. This is going to trigger some spawn of zombies, I think, so you want to be careful, but for the most it's very manageable. And that's a good piece of information too. Did you notice how I popped my map up just then? You can press the map button and it brings up a map that will be active, and it's one of the interesting features of this game. Normally you would have to pause the game to check the map. I think it's a cool touch, but I can't stand playing with the map on, so you'll notice I'll only flicker it on every so often because I don't like how it looks when the map's on the screen. Although I do concede it is incredibly useful, and it's definitely a habit you want to get into using, because it's just very, very powerful. So pushing forward in this village, we can now pick up the shotgun. The shotgun here is a good shotgun. It has decent damage, it has nice crit modifiers, but the reason we're going to be using this is because it's going to enable me, once it's fully upgraded, to purchase the Hydra for 30,000 gold, or Nigerian dollars, or I don't even know what the currency is in this fucking game. Could be cereals for all I know. But I'll just call it gold for the purposes of the videos. The Hydra is my favourite weapon in the game. It is a triple-barreled shotgun that Chris holds like he's the Road Warrior. He holds it like Dante from Devil May Cry. It's absolutely amazing. And it fires 3 shells at once, so the damage variable on the gun, when you upgrade the critical modifier, or when you upgrade the range, can give the gun, according to the wiki, double/triple damage properties. It can give it incredibly high damage modifiers. And because the gun fires quite quickly, and it's firing those 3 shots, and when it's upgraded it's like, what, 550 a shell? It adds up when you combine those together. You're doing like 3,000 damage very quickly. And the most useful aspect of the gun, I personally think, is the fact that it has great stun. Because when you do high damage with a shotgun, it has good stun capabilities, and it enables me to stun lock the heavier enemies into shotgun melee, shotgun melee, shotgun melee, which is a very effective way of dealing with them when you don't have a co-op partner. So that's why I'm going to go for the Hydra. It's kind of expensive to get the damage up on it, but we will have more than enough by the end of the game. And if you do need, if you're following this for a walkthrough because you don't want to use infinite rocket and things, you can always farm, guys. You know, this is me doing it as a point of principle to avoid farming and avoid just, you know, getting tons and tons of gold and upgrading. Like, I don't personally see the point in making a walkthrough and using upgraded weapons that I've inherited, or that I've been able to get, you know, really, really good and high crits on them, because if you are using this for a walkthrough, it doesn't help you. You know, if I'm using weapons that don't exist in the game at this point, how does that help a person who doesn't have them? It wouldn't help, so that's the reason that I'm doing this. It's not because I think I'm good or I think I'm a great Resident Evil player. That's not the point at all. The point is just to have this be as approachable to any player of any skill level and any setup. Like, you could be running through this with an infinite hand cannon and you don't even need these videos, but if you're doing that, then that's awesome, isn't it? You don't need the guide. I'm doing this mainly because people asked, and maybe there is that super rare dude who wants to earn his professional victory, which is a rare commodity in today's gaming culture, and the all entitled gamers who want games to play themselves and give you infinite continues and checkpoints and never struggle and immediately get all the trophies just by ejecting the disc. But that's awesome if you're one of those people, because I have a very high level of respect for anybody that challenges themselves, because it's one of the paths to improving, and the path of improvement is a noble cause, I think. Coming up shortly is a boss fight, which is going to introduce you to the precedent of the boss fights in RE5, and I think a criticism that you could levy at, you know, all Resident Evils are, generally, a lot of the bosses were animals that were deformed or mutated because of the virus and turned into bigger variants of those animals. Not the most creative concept, but they always kind of looked cool, and I did like them. Whereas RE5, they just kind of go with this whole slug leechy, crazy, chubby, Orotsuki doji, tentacle monster men, and it's kind of uninspired and really dull. I've never really liked the idea of designing a boss to look like a big old bag of shit. To me, it seems counterintuitive, but it's the way that they went with it, and it begins right now. So Bosses on Professional take an incredible amount of punishment. This guy is no exception. The strategy here is pretty simple. Drop the gas cans, get him to pick them up, and then shoot them to do damage. And the main objective is to get him in the furnace and then lock him in the furnace, which, when you play with a human, is really easy to do. Because you can communicate between each other, and you can make sure that, it's all running smoothly. With the AI, it's a little trickier because you have to use your limited perspective to see where the boss is, see who he's coming after, and of course the door does have quite a delay on it, but once you get him in there, it is pretty functional. And that first one worked perfectly, I can't complain whatsoever with that initial one. The next attempt, not so perfectly. I hesitate, it would have worked, but I didn't think it would, I didn't have full faith, and I end up messing up a bit. But personally, I think that should have been the end of the fight. If you put something in a furnace like that and you blast it, that should be it. But it doesn't, it takes like 2 or 3, which is kind of stupid. And once again, it compounds this issue that I've always had with Resident Evil 5, which is that the boss fights begin interestingly enough, but they go on so long that it's really easy to just lose interest. So, I throw a grenade just to see if it does any extra damage. I have no real attachment to the grenades in these games because there's no situation where I definitely need them. But there are a few situations where I do use them, and that was me trying to skip the cutscene. One of the cool things that you'll be able to do is, even if you don't have the grenades when you're trying to follow my strategies, if you didn't pick up the ones that I got, or you didn't get the RNG to get the drops of the grenades that I particularly did, you'll have a stockpile of grenades saved up from when you played through your first time or your first few times, so you can always just chuck those in your inventory to follow the strategies. And that's definitely one of the strengths, I think, of RE5, where you have this inventory of things inherited that you can just every so often compensate with, and then on top of that, every time you start a level or if you die and you restart, you're able to go into the shop and get extra equipment, which is super useful, and some of it is really, really cheap and affordable, and pretty damn powerful. Like the one that I didn't realise just how ridiculously cheap it was in conjunction to how good it is the proximity bombs, which are a device I'm only going to use on one boss because it's kind of designed around them, and I'm going to talk about that once again when we're there. But you can buy them anytime, and you get 5 for, I think it's 1,500 gold, which is absolutely nothing considering how good they are. You see that? She didn't move away from where the creature came up from the telegraphed teleport, and she took 90% damage. Right then, when I first went up to the machine, if I'd have, instead of hesitating and not doing it, if I'd have just gone and done it, he would have probably been stuck in that room. But now I face an interesting situation where he isn't in the room, and my only exit, my only point of egress here to get out of the situation is now sealed off. So I have to run the risk of not getting a quick time event to avoid this boss. Luckily enough, the door comes up just as I needed it, but the boss is going to teleport again. So there's a little bit of a cooldown on the switch, to throw the switch to kill the furnace. Like just then, that probably would have worked if I'd have been at that console. He might have got through because he is moving quite quickly, and he does have that sprint that he did just then. But for the most, you want to at least give him some leeway before you flick the switch. And as long as Sheva's on cover, she'll come with you, so there's no reason for the boss to change direction and try and cut you off the other way. So this should be the killing blow coming up. But the reason I use rocket launchers on most of the bosses is mainly because the ammunition that it needs to put them down would put me in such a negative space for surviving the next levels that I would be completely reliant on the drops of the game. And because I don't want to be exploiting drops, because I don't want to be using ammunition that I've stockpiled, I don't want to do that. And if I can get a free rocket launcher which completely, pussifies every encounter, then that is the best solution in my opinion. And I know there'll be some people that would prefer it if I fought all the bosses without the rocket launchers, and it's definitely doable. It's just for the sake of this run, I'm making a walkthrough that gives you strategies that I think are some of the most effective / some of the most efficient that I could find, or that I came across when I was playing. And a rocket launcher to the face that ends a fight in 5 seconds, it doesn't get much more, effective than that, really. As much as it might not be fun to watch, but as I've mentioned, The bosses, long, boring, dull, dangerous. Rocket to the face.